Happy Monday. Happy all-time high for Bitcoin. Um, we're going to talk targets today, talk how we're trading this and some of the analysis we did in the last week inside the group, inside the hub, as we refer to it. Talking about why we weren't really looking for swing shorts. Credit to Max there. I think on the 6th, I reposted what he had posted, that he just wasn't impressed by the high, and that while it was a good high and you could certainly have taken the short for like a trade and it would have been successful, it wasn't really what he was looking for all-time high. I'll let him get into that stuff. I don't really have any a whole lot of altcoins to talk about today. I think Max has a few shit coins he wants to go over. It does look like we have a decent amount of you guys waiting here. It looks like we have some royalty in the chat here with XRP Hank. I've heard that guy's YouTube channel is lit. So we'll see what's going on there. But we really want to get into the chart, talk about a couple levels. For me, $73,000 is one that I've been mentioning for, I don't even know when I mentioned it the first time. It was sometime before March. Back in February, we started talking about 73K, and then we revisited. Yeah, it was February 28th. We started saying, I was like, note the median at 73. Okay, yeah, 73K was mentioned then. And it still is important. I don't know that it's going to stop us, with our current all-time high breakout. And we will look at, Bitcoin historically, all-time highs on this asset, or, there's a little bit of a pullback, and we talked about that, and we did get it off the initial test, right? You've got your initial pullback here, right here. And these are weekly candles. You get your pullback, but realistically, it just kind of does its thing after that. And so we're in a very similar situation of, if we go down like a 4-hour or a daily, you can see that this level was fairly well respected. Ended up in kind of a swing fail of like these local lows here before making new highs. So, where do we go from here type of thing? We need to discuss the area that we're in and why it's such a big area. I think talk about time a little bit. Next key dates are going to be the end of March and first week of April for me. And then, targets after that. If we breach 73K and we hang on to the top side of this local consolidation, where are we realistically looking to? Obviously 100K is on the table at that time, but there are levels in between that we should be aware of. So we will kind of talk shop on that. But in terms of the price action, why 73K? If you guys have been following me since the 2020 era when I was making content on YouTube and TikTok back then, before that channel is now long gone, but very, very simple chart here on Bitstamp. This has been kind of a mainstay inside of my high time frame analysis for a while, right? So one thing we want to do is immediately, since we're kind of using older data, but it's still fairly relevant, we're isolating the prior low. There's our prior high, right? There's our swing low into the new highs. So we kind of know the key pivot points on the chart that we want to use. And if you guys recall, time on Bitcoin has been very, very good. The weekly chart's been very good for it as well. So these are exact to scale time moves, right? So, right away, there's your all-time high right here at $69,000 at the 1-to-1, meaning that the amount of time it took to get from this pivot low to the all-time high in 2017, and then projected off of the new low that was formed. So you're just taking this distance and now projecting it from this point. It's an exact 1-to-1. Pretty neat. It's very neat when you start looking at it from a trend-based Fibonacci standpoint as well, not just a trend-based time. So the exact same points, 0.1, 0.2, then we are expanding it off of the lows here at about 31.22 on Bitstamp. And you can see you've come into your logarithmic gold pocket, right? So log scale, gold pocket, trending move. So 61.8% in log of this entire move was then projected, and it came in at the exact 1-to-1. Giving you kind of the confluence of 62,931 to 73,520. And it really wasn't the only thing there. Even if we got rid of this, you could have looked at your 1618, which is from the prior all-time high at 20K down to the lows. You've got your golden ratio here as well. And then you had negative fibs. So negative fibs don't get as much attention from people, but you can see that you've got your low here and your high, and then we just project a negative fib here. And it was a negative 236. And so when you add all these things together, you had the confluence for this being the all-time high with timing. So, when you look at something like this, this would have been why you were targeting this box and this date, right? A lot of people have said that this was the original all-time high. I get some of that because I think they watch other YouTubers, and I just don't care. This to me was going to be the all-time high. Off of these lows, we were looking for at least 58K and got it. And obviously went into this box, took the high before dumping down, and then doing something pretty spectacular again, where you had the low. We're now measuring the low to the new all-time high right here. Oh, excuse me. We've botched this already. We're measuring the prior all-time high to the low, excuse me. Now we're measuring this distance to this distance, and we are projecting it from the new high, which was a perfect 1-to-1 as well, if you guys recall. So you now have another almost perfect 1-to-1 at the exact lows, which is what helped me kind of start to flip bullish after this secondary move down, right? And we kind of knew we were going to get that extra move outside of this range because I don't know if Max remembers, but in June when this move took place, it was a poor low. Essentially, we were looking for it to get taken. Also, if you look at the time that it came in on what, the weekend. Bitcoin rarely, now that CME and, well, I guess we've got ETF futures or whatever, rarely makes significant highs or lows on the weekend. Very rarely. So this was a Saturday. It was a very odd day to make a low. No swing failure pattern. So it just seemed kind of off, and we knew we had fib time coming in for November. So, things panned out and you got your low, and then it was just a matter of not hanging on to that bearish bias because you do have to be able to pivot with this market. So that is the context for said box right here. And again, that box runs us up to 73,244. So we can now go back to Bybit's chart because this is the chart I prefer to work off of anyway. And we've got our prior all-time high. You can go ahead and mark it out however you want to. We'll go ahead and just mark it on the chart. And so this is more of an educational thing, but it is building to an impetus of us coming to targets and how we're going to find those and use some pretty basic tools that I wouldn't say get misused a lot, but I think a lot of people see and they just kind of like, they don't really have a rhyme or reason of why they're using them. So, they're not using them incorrectly. They're just not really using them the way that they should be efficiently to give them targets and actually actionable areas to trade off of, right? So we have our previous all-time high, pretty important. And then it was 73, I believe what was it? 234. Is that what we said? 244. All right. 73, 244. We just don't have that data available to us on Bybit. So that's okay. And this would be 73K resistance, right? And if you wanted to, you could change the color, whatever you want to do. That way, it's resistance. And so big area, mainly because when we get back up here and we look at all this, had price broken through this right here, where does it go from there? Based on the trend in logarithmic, it says you're going quite high. Linear really isn't going to be too much help here. You can see that, linear kind of, you started maxing this out pretty quick. Like you could start adding the 3618, things like that if you really wanted to, and then eventually to the 4236. 3618 also giving you 73,000. Really nice. At 85,000. So 85,000 would be on your radar at that point, and on this data. Now, with the current data, if we can break 73, which to me is fairly important resistance still, getting rid of all this stuff here, you could start looking at this in terms of forks, and just kind of, where can I start to really, make sense of this chart. And you can see above this, you've kind of got some areas to be aware of. It all starts to line up in this region right around 85 again, right here with these forks. So above 73, you're already looking for 85 according to this. Above 73 here, where do we go? You kind of have to go back to your macro bottoming pattern. For those that aren't new or are new, this was the pattern that we put forth coming into this, and we actually worked off of this, calling it, macro time, essentially looking at this in terms of, how did these impulses line up? Meaning, again, we're measuring the length of moves from X to A, and then we're projecting that over here. So we're projecting this distance from this point now, and you can see it's pretty good. Comes in pretty close to a 1-to-1 again. So kind of aiding us in that not only did we have macro time saying that the 1-to-1 in November was coming, but then you also had a local pattern here from the COVID lows that had formed that was giving you kind of, hey, it should be completing in this time frame and you should start looking for potential reversals. After that, you had the top here in July, which was called out really nicely. And then we were looking for 49K. For anyone that recalls, those posts are on Twitter. They were all made publicly months in advance that we were looking for 49K coming in January, and that would be a pretty big pivot point in the market for us. And we were just working off of a regression tool, which that video comes out today for the group, on how I use these in the settings and why they're important. And we were looking for this 49K gold pocket and or median to come in fairly quickly in January if we were to continue a bullish trend, right? And we'll go ahead and get the golden ratio. And there you go, like so. Very, very simple. So you can see timing's working out really well. Now we've pushed past that, and we start to wonder if this timing is still valid. Now this is pointing us out till August, which I do actually think is an area to be aware of. But you start to kind of look at the impulses of this and think, where might I start looking at this in terms of the next key pivot point in the market. The XAB is probably not as important as the X to D. So meaning that before we were just measuring the solo impulse right here again, and then projecting from this level here, and that's what gave us those timelines. Now we're taking a look at the entire body of work and we're measuring from X over to D. So this point and this point, and we're projecting that with time. So very important to do so. From here on over, we got to find the low and we're on it. And we can get rid of this one because it should be the same. Perfect. So this is letting us know that the first week of April is kind of an important area for us right now on the chart. It would be the halfway point in distribution of this. Now, some of you guys are probably going, that doesn't really mean anything to me, and that's totally fine. But harmonics are something that generally are fairly symmetrical, and the market tends to operate within, as you've already seen, like a rubber band. So 1-to-1s in time and price, and like 50% marks in times and price do matter. Hopefully you guys are picking up on that, because humans do, they react pretty much the same throughout history. Fear and greed is, fear and greed. So that's just kind of what happens. So from here, where do we go? You can really start doing the exact same thing we just did for this new information, right? So you'll see that we have got the low of our bottoming pattern right here. And what we've done is taken the distance from X all the way to C. So that is from 3730 to 69K. And then we've projected that same distance or move off of the completion of this pattern, giving us a trend-based fib, right? So if we were to look at this in terms of a 1-to-1, you would be looking to right around $81,000. And that's why that is kind of the next key area for me above 73. That implies, though, that you're going to be holding on to 69K probably as support for now. I would think that, 69K, I think Max in the group had identified like 70.9K earlier this morning as key support. So for me, hanging on to this region of the chart is actually fairly important, and it's a big deal. So if we start finding our way back in, does that mean this whole rally's over? I definitely don't subscribe to that at all. I just think that, it would be a pause in the rally. But there's really no sign of weakness. And, one thing that we can touch on is, I've taken some intraday shorts. They're on my Twitter. I gave you guys some pretty key levels over the weekend that were good. Allowed you to take both shorts and longs out of the local areas. But there's been no reason to short because there's been no sign of weakness since breaking back above 49K. Another method that we use inside the group is I use deviations, and I base them solely on closures almost. And if you take a look, the shorts that I took were from 49,025, if you guys recall. And that was just that gold pocket plus the December naked point of control from 2021. And then you had the +4 deviation right here beyond this level. So, you can see nothing above $47,000, not even on a 4-hour. And that's that wick to 49. The initial short came all the way down. You did put in a really nice harmonic bottoming pattern right here. Boom. That was something that was called out well in advance. Maxed this thing out and then took off, right? Well, where do you go from here? 53K was the alternative to 49. And if that came in at the end of February, I was looking for a short. It was a perfect touch, really good short. However, again, the market is going to do what the market's going to do. You can't just marry these ideas and think you're going to be right and start averaging into losing positions. I would rather let my long from 16.6, I think it's 661 run. That is the trade that's going to be, suiting best for this price action. That are looking for opportunities in other assets like altcoins when they become relevant. So, these deviations have also been fairly good for us in terms of levels to be aware of. So 73K is resistance. All-time high needs to be hung on to. Realistically, you can maybe even move that all the way down to like 65, but I wouldn't want to do anything quite that way. But then you've got your +9 deviation at 83, right? So next key area is 73. Anything above 73, and I kind of just start tuning into like 81,000, give or take, kind of a zone there. If you get above 81,000, that's when we can really start having the discussion, in my opinion, of 100K Bitcoin. Going back to the well with this chart, if we start breaking above this level, where is going to be the 100K Bitcoin? It does get derived, in my opinion, from this area of the chart yet again. So you would be using the old lows right here and projecting from here. So one thing you can do in this instance is we'll clear up the chart. And we know we need 81K. We'll just put 81 on the chart now as well. And we're going to keep this as simple as possible, right? This is our one-to-one, if you guys recall. I think it was 80,800. And we're going to make that a white line as well. 81K resistance. And these are all based on fibs. We're not doing anything earth-shattering here. Nothing like breaking the mold of like what, you should be doing with the chart. It's just more of, really kind of looking at things and going, all right, this is what makes the most sense. How can I actually get actionable targets that I can trade off of? And now you have this here, right? So this is giving you a one-to-one way up there. But if you, again, remember, the gold pocket is what we maxed out in right here. So the gold pocket is our logarithmic top here in terms of trend-based fibs. And if you were to do the exact same thing off of this reversal pattern, you can see that it puts you in the $93,000 to $103,000 range. That does start to become a pretty big area if you get through this, the one-to-one. Okay, this one-to-one becomes super important at 80,889 or the 81K resistance. So you got to really stair step this 73K, then 81K, anything above 81K. And I kind of open the door up to that logarithmic target and start looking for 93 to 103,000. And we know that we have the halving coming up in April, but we also have a fib time pivot coming up in April as well. So this will be something that, head on a swivel. Does price have to reverse there? Just because, I put a fib time level there, from X to D. Just because this is here doesn't mean it has to reverse, but it is something that I'm going to be aware of. And that, if we're hitting a key resistance like $81,000 specifically would be a pretty big one for me. If we're doing something like this, let me get rid of these so that there's no background on it. If we're doing something like this, running into our reversal regression, at the one-to-one, at that fib time, is that a blind short for me? By no means would I just blindly short anything, but it certainly is something that I would keep in mind, much like you had the fib time that came in up here at the key Fibonacci resistance. This is yet another instance where that, kind of becomes the case. And then we can really start, looking at this from a different viewpoint where we could say, all right, well, what makes the most sense in terms of a channel? And you can start to kind of, put one together. And this is all logarithmic. You can see that you're just connecting your COVID lows to the lows that we've currently made off of the 69K high. You can see that lines up nicely with our one-to-one here. If we went a little further back in time, I believe I was on this guy. Oh, you guys can probably hear my dog outside giving me heck. He's not very happy that he's out there, but he's been inside all morning. So I don't really want to, shouldn't say I don't want to deal with him, but you know, he's a handful. It's on the BLX. That's where we put it. So this is the BLX. This is a really nice point from the overall low to the COVID low projected from the 69K high, right? You can see that we are currently at the 1-to-1. So anything above 73, we're looking for 81. Anything above 81, and we're now targeting what? The golden ratio in terms of the trend, which is up here at the 150% extension of this channel. So another really nice confluence of why these targets actually matter. And that doesn't mean that price can't go to 85 or 87 and reverse. It doesn't mean it can't reverse at like 91. You know, these are really meant to just be guides, but at the same time, trying to give you guys an actionable plan based on, you know, tool usage and things that, you know, have historically been accurate for this asset and other assets, even new ones that are ripping in, you know, into price discovery, so to speak. So I'm not really keeping up too much in the chat. Swore up, bros. It has been a long time. I don't know. I don't recognize your name, but it has been a long time. Good to see you as well, Loki or Loki. So again, if we wanted to build this same channel, but do it on like the Bybit chart, it says 700 drawings. That's borderline obnoxious. I'll make this fairly quick because I know Max is like, dude, this guy will literally never stop talking if we don't stop him.
At this point, mate. Very used to
You shut your mouth. He's over there talking like that. He's very used to it. He probably is. But you know, I'm doing this because you know, this is good for you guys, right? Builds character, I think, is what I'm supposed to say as the resident old guy. You know, third cycle for me. This is an exciting one. This is the retirement cycle. So pretty sweet there. But again, so you're now looking at this in terms of the trend. So all we've done is we've connected our overall cycle low from 2018 to the COVID low, and then we have projected off of the 69K high, right? So you can see we're already making a new high, obviously, but this channel is now for trend, and you can see the EQ, which is the 50% mark, very well respected. You know, a little bit of a deviation here. Could we add additional fibs to this and probably find these lows? Yes. But is that really, you know, something that we need to be doing right now? No. It's not actionable to us right now. Only thing we should be interested in is this 100% move, or this channel move right here that's now projected, something that we can work off of. Does it line up with any of my other analysis? You know, is this something that makes sense? And so we could then just take trend-based fibs. Again, we're using the basic tools. And you can see the 1-to-1 comes in at like 347,000. I think those are targets that, you know, everybody wants to hear, but it probably not that actionable. But if we take the trend-based logarithmic trend from the overall cycle low to the high to here, you get 105,000 to 116. If you chose to use the harmonic reversal, it's 93,000 to 103, giving you kind of a wide area, anywhere from 93,000 up to 116. But in reality, I'm really just looking for this 100% channel extension, and I'm looking to see if we can hit 100K, right? So 73K is key. Anything after 73K, we have our 81K resistance. So 80,889 was technically the number, because I do recall that. And that is our linear scale 1-to-1. Oh, where did you go? We added a 0 there. That would make everybody very happy, I'm sure. But, you know, getting out of log and looking at it in linear, you can see what? We're at the 100 extension of it in terms of linear. EQ still very well respected. We still like it. Really far away now over here, as you can see, because this is no longer a percentage basis. This is an actual linear move. And so linear and log are going to look quite different. I would be curious about, yeah, man, that's really far away. Wow. You'd have to use the 113%, which is your like lowest fib. That's crazy. Sorry, we don't want to get sidetracked here too much. But again, this is what I mean by you could always add your fibs and find where these levels, you know, are respected. So you're already above the channel. Breaking 73K puts us in striking distance of the 1-to-1 here, the linear scale 1-to-1, if you guys recall. So this means like a 1-to-1 in terms of price, not based on percentages. 81K, that's the next target above 73. If we come up to 73 and give up the prior all-time high, that's when I start to look at things and say, okay, maybe we're coming back down into this like 58K range. and we maybe put in a larger structure here. Still not a death sentence. Anything above this, and we look for the 150% projection of this channel. So this is the channel right here. This is the 150% projection. That also is going to put us in a pretty good spot for what we were just discussing in terms of the 100K mark in log scale from the trend, right? And then I would be curious what the 1618, 122. Very neat. And we have one other fib pool that I'm really interested to get in on, and that is going to be our, yeah, look at that. There is your golden ratio coming in at about 102. So really starting to highlight that area we talked about, right around 100K. And I think it started at 93 with the log scale using our harmonic points instead of the overall points from high to low. But in this case, you're just looking for expansions. The 1618 lines up nicely at this 150% projection. And this would be how I'm getting my targets for the levels I want to trade off of on the high time frames. Let me get rid of the 618 and 65 for just a second. And you can see it here, 73K, which we saw was overall resistance. If you guys recall right here, and we'll get rid of this, it's just not necessary, was the overall resistance. It was just a trend-based resistance actually on log right here. Get above that, we can start taking a look at 81. Get above 81, and I really do think that your next target is probably that 100K zone. And do I have targets above 100K? I mean, sure, we could always come up with targets, but I think that this is the easiest way to start looking at them as of right now. And then we have our time pivot coming in at the end of April. That's it. I mean, point blank, that's as easy as analysis as you're going to get. I know this was a very winded go through, but this was supposed to be kind of a members, video where we go through the charts, and I do spend time trying to make sure you guys know how I'm using these tools and how to use them yourself. I'm not really trying to like hide anything there. You guys should be able to get these same levels and duplicate this, not only on Bitcoin, but other assets. That's the goal. And there's a lot of tools that are available. It's just, you don't have to use them all, but when you do use them, you should, use them well. So that's kind of the levels, that's realistically it. I don't think that there's any negatives to really be aware of in terms of negative fibs. You would be literally pulling from like here, which is that the low at 3114? Yeah, it is. From here to here. And, these would have to be probably in logarithmic scale to really have done anything. Yeah, they're not going to give you much there. If you were to go to the next high, it would be like something like right here. And, these are, negative 618 is 110,000, which I do like. Obviously, that's in line with what we were just looking at earlier between, I think it was 93 and 116. And 110 obviously falls in the middle of that, giving it a little bit more confluence. Would be curious about the 236, 84,000, kind of giving you a wide zone here. So the negatives really aren't going to give you a whole lot outside of that golden ratio, in my opinion. I think that this is probably a pretty good area to box off. If you had to have a box, you'd have something like this right here and say that this is probably going to be my next area of interest should price actually make that full-blown move above 81K, which is pretty ambitious, to be quite upfront with you. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but I do think it's ambitious to be looking beyond this point in like a single candle, because that would put you from 69K all the way to 100, 120K potentially, which is a full 100% move of an asset that's trading at $1 trillion market cap. That would be pretty crazy. Anything can happen, of course, but I just don't really see that going down. So that is it for me.
You've got a question.
What do I
Preparing
have?
for War says, could you show how to use the trend-based fib on a local level?
Like a local level. You mean like a day trade?
I would presume so.
Sure. Let's see. Trend-based fib. We had a pretty good, oh man, when was it? This is all the way back in, I'm trying to think of a nice one-to-one off the top of my head that we had. We had a really good one in, man, it was like November of 2022. There was another one in 2020 that I really like. I talk about that one incessantly. Where was it? I believe we had a 1-to-1. Was it this guy? Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Local level. One could do it off of a local level, sure. I would, if it was me and I had preferences, I would use something like a harmonic and or time frame in this case. If you're not as comfortable with um, Fibonacci, so this is our obvious low right here. It was this shark pattern that came in, right? So, this is more of a local pattern. This is something you can see visibly on like a 4 hour. It's not like something we're on the high time frame. So, for something like this, you could really start looking at things and say, okay, what's this move look like? And then project it off the low. Where's my 1-to-1? You can see it's coming in right around 47. Also pointing you to the old daily naked point of control that was up here and the 886, which for this asset is the secondary target after the 50, or not for this asset, for this trade setup is the secondary target. Because for a shark, you're looking for the 50% mark. Then you're looking for the 886. Then you're actually looking for like the 113% and the 1618. If you were using the 1-to-1 as well from X to C in this case, because C does take out A in a shark before D also making that same move, you're projecting this local move from high to low off of your new range low, and you're looking for the 1-to-1. And what did you have? You had nice confluence with the daily naked point of control and the 886. So giving you kind of an extra like, okay, if we clear 43,773, which was also, I believe, a monthly pivot. I don't need to go 15 months back, but yeah, look at that. It was your monthly pivot for the month. So getting back above the prior month's average, 50% mark, 1-to-1 becomes a target. The other one that comes to mind is anytime there's like an ABCD. So now you're really looking for symmetrical patterns. ABCDs don't come in as often as one might think. There was a really good one. I swear it was whenever I went and visited CVO in Florida. I believe it was November or December, but I can think of a handful of them for you off the top of my head, actually. So, this is a really good one right here. If I recall, I like to pair it up with like the 886 a lot of times. And are we in log? Okay, good. Good. You had your local low to your high and then to your low here. And you can see that you came up a little bit short. But again, I like to pair right up to there to the 886. It gives you a nice little like kind of zone. That way you're not trying to like time the exact top to the dollar because it's just not healthy. But it gives you one of these. So what I was talking about with AB equals CD, these are very simple patterns where you're just looking for equal time and distance, right? So we're looking for A to B to be projected off of C and D leg to kind of be matching. You had a really, really nice one over here in April of 2020, I believe, right after the COVID lows. This was actually, so I actually nailed this one like to the dollar, and I'm really upset I didn't hold it because it was a pretty large trade. But it was, at the time I was using way too much leverage. We'll just leave it at that. And Max knows how we feel about leverage. So this would be your 1-to-1 right here. So local level, right? So this already should resemble something for you. Like you can use these in channels, for instance. Looks like a channel, right? So you have a nice harmonic pattern. It's perfectly symmetrical in terms of the 1-to-1, basically. Right? You can see this is almost an exact touch of the 1-to-1. Well, realistically, it is. And I believe the timing on this was also very good. I believe this was very, very good. Yeah, it's pretty close. You're within 8 hours. So really, really good timing, really good 1-to-1. Good reversal at that point. So, these 1-to-1s can be quite useful. And then again, on like a high time frame, you could, practice these things if you wanted to with something like this. I think that this was another one right here. This actually was you had a naked point of control down here, but I remember when I was trading this, I was looking for the 1-to-1 because there was a gap fill down there, and you had this right here going on, which you barely breached into the 886, didn't quite hit the 1-to-1 at 3,000, but you did have that naked point of control that was coming in here from this quarter as well to kind of give you the confluence that this was a nice target. Trying to think low time frames. I mean, we could look at what we've got going on today, but I just wanted to give you at least a couple clean examples before we, get into a bunch of I wouldn't say baloney, but let's take a peek at what we've got going on like the 1 hour. I think the 1 hour will probably do. We're going to log for just a second, see if we have any clean levels here. This is tough because these ranges are so small. So like, what I mean by that is if I were to do like a local 1-to-1, right? So like, you would be anticipating something like this. It's probably not the best use, right? So actually we could probably bring this over and this over to here. And you can see how you start running out of these levels fairly quickly, because this is a pretty tight consolidation. So if you're using it locally, it would have to be very local in that case, like down to like the 1 minute chart pretty much. I don't think that with this trending price action, it's going to be too useful. I personally don't know that I would be using it right now. It's just not something that, with this is going to be all that useful. But we could certainly do this. So you have your current low, right? We have our local high to our current low, and you can see that you haven't hit your 1-to-1. So for me, this is one of those things where if I was only using this, you would be looking for 73K still, right? And it kind of lines up with our high time frame target. Now, what you'd have to be aware of in that instance is that, you've got the local highs here that you set in as the session opened and you've come up and swept them. Now, does that mean that the rally is over? Not necessarily. Obviously, you have a local low right here that if lost, then we could start talking about challenging into these lows down here, right? Subsequent lows, right? We could say, okay, well now this becomes a target and these become targets, and maybe this is going to break back down lower. But you do need to be aware that you have taken the high that you set in the New York session. Well, I guess it actually is this. We just had a time change here, Max. So now I've got to remember when we opened. I think actually, yeah, this is the New York session still. Okay.
Yeah, I think it is the New
Yeah.
York session.
Yeah. So one would look at this and say that if our overall macro target or high time frame target is 73K and our 1-to-1 is 73, that unless you really see a sign of weakness here, which to me would be loss of this level, I'd still be looking for this 1-to-1. Could you get an initial nice trade out of this? Potentially, you'd probably just be looking at, okay, where's my, daily VWAP, things like that. And then maybe my session VWAP, because I have a feeling the daily is probably quite far away, more than likely. Yeah, it is quite far away. I would be curious on the session. So that means the session opened up instead of at 8:30, it should have opened up here, I believe. Yeah, pretty close to your session VWAP. Coming back if you're like trading a local move off of that. So for me, I would still be looking at this as the 1-to-1 is, more probable than not, as long as these higher lows are in place, right? So hopefully that was helpful. I know that was kind of a roundabout, like we're giving an example, but it was one of those things where I try to give the best ones I can. That way you get some clean ones, and then you get to watch me like go through the chart and fumble to find you an example. Let's see. XRP Hank, my minimum target is 350K. This guy right here. Oh man, trade BTC for peanuts, trade shitcoins for generational wealth. You know it. That is 100% what we're doing here. All right, I don't really have anything else. I'm gonna turn it over to Max, let him talk some open interest, order flow, whatever he wants to go over. Probably do altcoins if he wants to as well. And if you guys have questions, fire away. That's fine too. I'll go ahead and mute myself and let him take over.
I'll touch on a few altcoins, but it's only Kaspa I really want to talk about. All the others are kind of just like mulling around, all the ones that I would be trading. So Bitcoin right now, it's looking very good. It's really not showing any signs of stopping. You've had a few times like this. This could have been the top. Okay, last Friday when you had this huge wick to the upside, huge amount of buying, and then a huge drop. Now, if this isn't going to be the top, which it obviously isn't, we're gonna get that similar thing again, and it's probably going to come down a lot harder than it did before. So these are the type of things that you look for when trying to judge a good high and a good low. And when you're talking about an all-time high, Normally it gets pretty crazy when you get them. We're doing it now, but it's not going crazy. So we have to wait until the crazy aspect comes in, when you get that insane, stupid amounts of volatility and it just wrecks both sides of the market. It wrecks the people that are longing and buying towards the top, and it wrecks the people that are shorting, because you just get such a volatile candle to the upside. No one can really, with any correct risk management, you're getting stopped out of that position. So you're getting wrecked. So it's the difficult aspect of trading when price is doing this price discovery, when it's kind of finding its feet where to go. But you can't buy here. Can you short here? Yes. We've just had an SFP of the early morning highs, I guess, the New York session high so far. So we are getting an SFP here. Could this be a trade? Yes, I would have preferred it to drop in these two candles here, but you're getting, you can see here, you're getting open interest increasing, delta kind of not being too too positive, considering it's climbing back up. We're actually getting negative delta candles on green candles. So what that means is delta is market orders. So if you're aggressively buying on your exchange, it comes into this is order flow, it's a footprint chart, and I can see that, okay, in this candle here, overall, if we take all the market buys and all the market sells in this candle, there was on Binance USDT, there was a total or overall of 3.2 million market short, more than the market buys. And yet this candle's green. So this is a bullish sign. So if you are looking to take a short and seeing this type of thing, you're going to want to kind of hold off on that, because if the people that are already shorting aggressively can't push the price down, it kind of ties your hand when you're going to do the same thing. If you can already see people struggling in their positions, does it mean it's 100% going up? No, but it means that there's a good chance that it does continue up. And that's just looking at it right now. But yeah, this you can look at this on the 1 minute. This is not an all-time high. This is going to continue up whichever way you like it. But we can't buy here. Where can we buy? This is what I want to go over now. So if you were up in the late hours of last night, or for me at 5 a.m., which I was not, you had a perfect buy opportunity. Here you had a really big volume spike, a really beautiful wick, a lot of volatility right into the previous week point of control. Seems a very simple buy up on the order flow. If you're watching the footprint, let's go and find it. You had a really nice delta switch up. You're pretty negative delta open interest all the way into it. Sorry, negative open interest. People getting wrecked. These bubbles here, these are people getting liquidated from the market. So you can see you're getting many bubbles as you come down. Huge amount of selling towards the lows, and it doesn't take much buying to then push the price back up, and you're getting your delta switch up here. Really strong buying, loads of buying imbalances. And this is the candle when you would have bought, or potentially when you came back later to the gold pocket down here. But these two opportunities in the early hours for me, or late hours for most of you guys, would have been the real ones to get into, profit from the current move that we're in now. Obviously, that doesn't help us where we are, because obviously it's at the highs. This SFP is probably going to come back. Just have a look. Now you can see the shorting, the market orders, they're actually pushing price down much more significantly than they were previously, but still not 100% convinced personally. But for me, obviously with knowing that the all-time high probably isn't in yet, and we're going to continue up, and we've got some levels from Magic, we want to get into longs still, but we don't want to be dumb about it. So we need to be smart. So where can we get into longs? Given where we are now, and I am talking day trades. I'm not talking about swing trades from up here. Obviously, you've missed that boat a long time ago, but we can still take day trade longs. Obviously, that one being one for an example. But right now, I quite favor the key level of 70,900. Now, why is this my key level? Well, you've got a single print in this region from this morning's price action. You've got a really low volume area beneath you. So that's where the danger comes in with taking this potential long. But the reason I like it is because if you look at it on the 5 minute, you had a huge spike in open interest, and it stopped right at the top of that candle. We've already come back and back tested it effectively once, and then we got a bit of a wick through, but I'm considering that a back test of this area. And why is it important? Because if we can hold this area with let's just have a look on the see how much percentage it is. It's a 3.4% move on that 5-minute candle. Okay, you've had maybe had a little bit extra up here, but 3.4% ends here. Locally, this is rather important because this is trapped shorts. It's also longs that are in profit. But currently now, the one that you want to be aware of is trapped shorts. Now, when price comes back down to this region, if it does, and I'm sure it will at some point, you're going to sweep this low. In fact, I should draw. How do you even draw? I don't ever draw. We'll leave it. You're going to sweep this low here. You're going to sweep this low here. You're going to sweep these lows, and maybe this one here, all to come down to this key level. And at that point, anyone that is long has been either moving the stop loss up, they're out of the positions. Anyone that has been buying up here, probably out of their positions. You're scaring out the weaker hands, and you're coming back to test this area. Now, when you're testing trapped traders, the shorts, for example, in this instance, people do it, and everyone has done this at some point, but you will close your short at at no loss. Let's say you're in a big red position and price comes back to your entry. People will close their trade and think, thank God, I've just not lost any money. I've just made money by not losing money. That's the typical psychology in trading. So this is why this type of thing works, because you'll come back to this level and everyone that is in shorts in this candle that are underwater now, they will just close that position. And what is a short trade when you close it? Well, it's a buy. So you're going to get support here. And you also are hoping that the buyers that have entered here are selling at some point and are willing, and not selling all their position, but are willing to defend as well if they have sold when the price comes back to the level. So you've got a few reasons here to potentially take a long at in and around just below 71,000 to 70,900. VWAP there as well. For me, it just makes sense. Stop loss on that trade is a difficult one because obviously you do have this huge single print. And if we do lose this level, and let's say we come below and maybe come back and back test the daily point in control, and then move down again, at that point, that's when you're going to be, in my opinion, closing this entire single print and coming back and testing what is the week open and the previous all-time high, which again is a really key level if we do lose that. But it all depends for me on how price reacts up here, and this can give us a early entry for either a short or a long trade to take it up. And what I mean by a short is either the day point of control backtest if we come below it and come back and backtest it, or it can happen simply at this key level. If we come back, get below the VWAP, backtest the VWAP, something like that. It's the backtests which are going to be the really easy trades, unless you're willing to short these SFPs. But this SFP just makes sense to me to take that trade. So let's have a look at it now. To update a bit. Yeah, I am going to take a little trade on this one, I think. Just a little one, small position size, because your stop loss is going to be above the high. You don't want to be caught out if this does fly back down. I'm going to wait to see a bit more heavy selling. I want to see them do a bit more, and then I will enter my trade on this one. Because stalling around an SFP, an all-time high, it just, for me, signals that you're probably going to continue up. So as soon as I can see a bit more heavy selling, I'll probably enter that trade. And the point of control is the profit, take profit. Do you agree?
Is it on the London high right now? Is it giving that up? Is that what I'm seeing? I'm going through the London and Asia sessions right now since I haven't done that.
Yeah, it's giving up the London high as well. Go on then. It's stalling though. It's stalling if you ask me.
Just 100x short, Max. It'll be fine. What could go wrong is Bitcoin has ripped all the way to 73K. Almost.
But yeah, for me, the buy area is potentially, you have to be patient and allow it to come to you. And it's down here. And I favor sweeping these lows at some point. It's why the short, even if not now, if potentially later, it does make sense to come back on whichever high that we SFP eventually, to come and sweep these lows here and to test this open interest. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me in Bitcoin. There's not really too much other locally I want to go over.
If you were watching just the New York session, would you think I got 71,481.50 as being the New York session low? That feels like, because you've got that, and then you almost took it around 2 hours into the session. You came within like $9 of it before
yeah.
coming up and taking the highs. It just feels like coming back to that would probably be in the cards, so to speak. And then if you looked at like your overall daily range, I wonder where
Is Twin in here? I'm not sure Twin's in here, but the Twin's been watching this thing on the New York Open and coming back and back testing it. Very
Oh,
fucking
the
bad.
open. I thought about that. Is tracking the opens now that
Yeah,
we're up.
he's tracking the New York Open, and when you make a move away from it and you get a
Yeah.
trade, oftentimes you'll come back and revisit it. It's happening so much recently as well, and it's an absolute belt to that. I'm not sure if he is in this video right now, but yeah, shout out to Twin for finding that.
Man, our channel sponsor here, Mr. Bing X, is trying to chat me up while we're live, and he's in the group, so he knows that we're live. Fahad, not the time, bro.
But yeah,
sorry if
do
he's
you
watching.
reckon he probably watches?
Yeah, I doubt he watches, bro. If he watched, he would probably not be doing that. Which means, you know, his suggestions are secondary because if you don't watch the channel, not that I produce a bunch of content, but
He's probably like, why am I sponsoring these guys? And they've put out one video in like the last however many months.
I go live on other people's channels all the time. I just don't make a lot of personal content. And we've been very active at least 2 to 3 times a week for everyone in the group since we stopped making content in July. Public content is just kind of
people
one of those.
in here that have been like, where are you? We are active as fuck.
Yeah, pretty much been active since this whole run. It's just putting out public content's I don't want to say it's a chore, but it's it can be a grind. It can be a grind. You guys are ruthless. So for lack of a better term, this is all your guys' fault. I'm gonna gaslight you guys. I mean it's fine.
I just want to quickly go over
70.9. No, go ahead. I was 70.9. I was looking at 71,203.50 as well.
70,900 I quite favor.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just because of the open interest that they've got. They've got a really large amount of open interest.
That's
and
the 7th standard deviation on the yearly chart as well. It's good. It's a good level.
You go, then. A little bit more confidence.
I like that. Those deviations have been fucking killer. Excuse my language.
But you've not been looking at the previous day ones yet, no? You just
no, not really. Yeah, I've been sticking to the high time frame stuff because I haven't been day trading as much as you guys. I've just been enjoying the swing trade on the upscale because, like, to me, there's just been no point in day trading a lot. And I've been pretty busy with family stuff, so it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, when the day trades come back around, which we're getting back into that swing of things with this volatility, yeah, we'll take the day trades and go from there because that's really all you can do unless you're swing long already. You know, in an all-time high breakout, trying to be contrarian and short every top is just going to get you absolutely mauled. Right. Now, kind of like you just said, you know, taking day trades is one thing, trying to, you know, call tops is another. So,
but yeah, we've had some really good trading days. Like, you know, with this back here, this was on the 6th of March. We were moving like this. We were just ranging, and the top of the range multiple times. It was $1,000 each way, and it's happened continuously now. Like, if you are day trading this market, simply trading stuff like SFPs. I'm looking at this one here. You know, if you get in somewhere towards the low, or let's say you get in at the candle close, you know, you could still easily get almost $1,000 move from in minutes. This is on a Sunday as well. The fuck, you know, you're getting huge moves just continuously here. So, you know, now is the time to day trade. Just lower the fucking leverage and relax a little bit. Be patient, and you can day trade the fuck out of Bitcoin. You know, of course, there's the altcoins, but they're not always the best for day trading, if you ask me. Kaspa, we were speaking about this on our Thursday members stream about how we're in the gold pocket and we were looking for it to come down. It didn't quite come down to where I wanted it to. I wanted it to come down to the gold pocket because we were speaking about how this is re-entering an old range and it just looks a bit shit in general. Now, for me, you know, with what's transpired over the weekend and so far today, we've got a huge amount of open interest that's come in. 47% increase in open interest on Kaspa, and it's kind of where it's come in. It's kind of not really in any place interesting. Well, it's in this point of control in this little range, and we are above it now. For me, however, with me not liking Kaspa and thinking it's going to go down a little bit more and offer better buy zones, a nice dragon on Kaspa. I have no idea what a dragon is. Is that a pattern of some sorts? But the way
Kind
that
of
I'm
like
looking,
a pattern. Yeah, it's kind of like a harmonic pattern.
okay,
Yeah, I don't
so
trade it, but it's valid.
it's valid, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
if you're
there.
looking at Casper and you're expecting, okay, we've got a huge increase in open interest. Again, back to the trapped traders aspect. If we've got 47% increase in trapped shorts right now, and they're all below us, so they're completely trapped. This area should be support. If lost, though, we've got some really nice lows here and a very juicy wick that is just asking to get taken. So, if we do give up this area, which is kind of making its way slowly back into it now, you're going to be heading to the gold pocket, and then you're probably going to get a good chance at filling this big wick. As oftentimes you'll see on multiple coins, when we have a huge wick, price does go and refill that wick. So you had one here, price has made its way back down. You've had another one here. There's a good chance we do it again. And I think that the real area to understand that is this little box here. So can Casper continue up? Sure, it's just got to hold this box probably down to the point of control at 0.15. If it can't, you're really playing with fire with it, because we were looking at this quite a bit more, but coming down to this wick here, and sorry, not this big wick, but this wick here, coming down to this wick here, you've got nothing pretty much stopping you until you get down to one, what is that, 10 cents, 10,850. I'm not even going to try and go that far in after the dot, but it's pretty far into your next area of supports, really, and it is down here where you started to build up before taking off again. So with it giving up all this room, it's really not looking good. If areas such as this, where you're having a 47% increase in traders effectively coming into the market, are getting flipped from support to resistance, and this is how you use open interest to really to day trade, to be honest with you. So it's all about seeing my traders are trapped, and trading from their punishment, I guess. It's just the way it is. But yeah, Casper was the only one I really wanted to talk about. So can continue up if it holds this region. If it starts to lose it, it's really not looking good. So kind of do or die, if you ask me, for Casper. Yeah, this one came up on my scanner. Unfortunately, it's not got any open interest data on here. But if we pull up this, I can see the open interest. So you can see it had a huge increase recently, and the percentage change actually isn't that much. So with percentage change, the volume's shit. That's why. Okay, completely ignore this coin. I should have checked the volume. But yeah, Solana, we gave a buy box on Thursday. Took a while, but it got there in the early hours this morning. Now it's kind of doing something similar to Bitcoin, where it's mulling around not similar to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's mulling around the New York high. Solana's mulling around the previous day high. So with it being lingering here, and you've already actually re-entered the single print that formed, you've got a good chance that you're probably going to come down to the day open, if you ask me, because it's not like the open interest in this move up was strong. So it's kind of hollow price action, and this is your last area of support and resistance. So I do expect us to come down on Solana and test that weekly open again. Does it continue up? Solana really follows Bitcoin. If you get a correlation, I can't, for some reason, it's not loading. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I can get this up. So this is a correlation heat map. Actually says it's not following Bitcoin. That's the lowest I've seen Solana and Bitcoin, I think, ever. But this is a correlation heat map, so you can track the different moves between coins. So you can see Bitcoin here. Obviously, it's 1-to-1 with Bitcoin. TRB is opposite. Dog with hat is pretty similar. Audi's pretty similar. So when you're trading altcoins, you do have to be aware of this. On the 2-hour, it does follow Bitcoin. So the higher up you go, it's seemingly a lot of these coins follow. And the problem you have with this is when you're charting and putting a load of effort into altcoins, and then you're not taking note of how correlated they are with Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin does its own thing, and majority of the alts follow. That's just the way it is. So you have to be aware of that. So No, I can talk about expecting Solana to. Um, where are we? Here. I'm going to talk about expecting Solana to come back and test the weekly open. But if Bitcoin just continues to take off, and when it's doing these slow moves as it is now, this is a slow move up. You're going to pop up in a minute. Slow moves typically continue. So with this slow move up, that's what you can expect. So with knowing that, going into Solana, would we be expecting this to come down to weekly open when we know it is super correlated with Bitcoin overall? Probably not. Maybe later, but most likely not right now. And this is just the way things are. Magic, I'm done. It's been an hour. I could keep rambling, but I don't want to.
I was gonna let you.
I know. I wanted to stop after Bitcoin, and then I just kept coming.
Oh man. Well,
It's one of them.
the Bitcoin chart, you were correct to be patient on. It looks like it is going to try to push a little bit here. I think you'd said you wanted to wait because it was sitting on
Yeah, I
top
did
of that.
take it. It was just lingering, mate. And
Yeah,
you're getting these candles where you're getting really negative delta, or not really negative delta overall, and they were green. It's been one of the best ways to trade or to really gauge the momentum of the markets recently. If you are a crack trader on the scalping aspect, is just simply seeing whether the delta is doing a good job of pushing the price in the direction that it should. Simply by watching that, you can really get a feel for where the market's heading or who's really in control.
One comment I saw on there is Bitcoin seems so unhealthy. We need a correction because it's going straight up. I beg to differ on the high time frames for that reason. Mainly because if you go back to other historical breakouts for Bitcoin, it is a lot of straight up. It's a lot of straight up for weeks at a time. Like if you go to a weekly chart, for instance, you can see what I mean. Like this is the weekly chart from the 2020 breakout. When you got back above about $11,000, give or take. It looks unhealthy, but it's fucking gonna rip, dude. And you're doing something very similar. You do have to remember that you spent a very large amount of time right here going sideways, building up your base. And now you've even gone sideways here again. And, this is not out of the ordinary for this asset. It does seem unhealthy. But that was said right here as well, all the way up to 10K, got to have a bigger retracement because, this is empty space. You could go back in time to here after the low before you went to 20K. There's no way it can keep going up. Were there big washouts? Yes, there certainly were. But, the age-old saying, price can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. It's very true. But a lot of people in this specific market, I've been saying it. One reason that I really thought the bottom could be in was because we were looking for about $27,000 in December, of 2022, back when this move had taken place. We started eyeballing about 27K. A lot of people were out of the market. And when this move happened after COVID, so many people watched price and didn't buy in until these levels because they were saying what you were just saying. So it is one of those things where it's tough for me to agree just because we have seen all of this before. This is all very similar. And you can call this healthy or unhealthy, whatever you want to refer to it as. Like right here, you can see this is a really, really similar move right here. Okay, looks like a head and shoulders, very similar here, a little more aggressive on the higher lows, but before absolute takeoff, right? And so could it be coming up to an area where we get that, pullback? Again, 73K, 81K, and then 100K realistically are about the areas you're looking at. And the only thing I would advise you of is, mark your levels and then, trade those accordingly. If you're going to trade it, if you're an investor and you're looking for areas to take profit, you don't have to exit a market altogether because of, it's hit some levels. I think it was Jesse Livermore that said, if a stock is acting right and the market is acting right, there's no reason just to sell it because it's making new highs. Now that doesn't mean you shouldn't take profits, but what he's trying to say is you don't just exit your entire position for no reason, without cause. just because something's going up, unless that was like already in the plans and you're like, I need this money today. I probably shouldn't have been trading with it to begin with or investing with it. And I said, if we hit this, milestone, I'm going to get out. Then yeah, sure. Do by all means get out of the market. You probably shouldn't have that money in there anyway. Glad it worked out for you. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow if you miss the bottom on something like Bitcoin, because people do forget that this is what the chart looks like. It's very aggressive. It's a very aggressive chart. So, don't forget, this is not out of the ordinary at all. This is not unhealthy for Bitcoin in any manner. We get into the fundamentals of it's designed to work in an environment where they print a bunch of money, and they've been printing money nonstop since, basically back here. And obviously we were in a bit of a lull with rates hiking, but they still are kind of printing money and spending money out of control. Like all that stuff, you could throw it out the window. What matters is just looking at the chart. Is this isn't really out of the norm. What would be out of the norm would be making an all-time high before the halving. So that's happened for the first time. That's out of the norm. That is something to take note of. There's a guy out there named Bob Lucas that talks about left translated cycles, which implies that we get our normal cycle. So 80 to 100K, which is kind of like targets for me. If we were going off of prior cycles, it just comes a lot faster, right? And then the cycle ends quicker. It's a quicker cycle. Now, we've had an exact 1-to-1 for the local high. We've had an exact 1-to-1 for the local low. The only thing that's different now is we've hit an all-time high well before the halving, months before. So that is, I wouldn't say alarming or concerning. It's just something to take note of in terms of if we start seeing major rejections coming in mid-cycle, rather than running the normal distance. And so what I mean by that is, if the normal distance is, this right here, this 1-to-1, right? So again, we'll run the exact same thing. If this is our normal cycle, right? 1-to-1 right here, we've hit our 1-to-1. We hit an exact 1-to-1 from the move down and this move down, right? So same projections. Corrections are the same length of time. Tops have been the same length of time. However, now we're starting to hit these major levels much sooner than anticipated, and we start getting major corrections before the next projection of a all-time high, which I believe is like 2025. So if we took the low here and went to the high, the previous high, and then projected from our local low, it would put you out in October of 2025, right? Now, if we followed the same 1-to-1 here, it's showing you that obviously it could be a little sooner, Q4 2024 instead of into 2025. So, you kind of have to consider that, if you start breaking those levels and seeing that retracement or that weakness, much like you did right here, right? A big sign of weakness came right here. If you see something like that early, then yeah, maybe we are getting that left translated cycle, and exiting markets sooner are probably a better idea. But then you have cause and you have a reason why you're doing it, and you're not just jumping to conclusions to jump to them. I don't really think there's anything else to add on that one. I'm not going to cover XRP. We've been live for a long time. I'm going to make an XRP video. I will tell you guys, XRP is not a bad looking chart for once. Not a great looking chart, but it's not a bad looking chart. I've been tracking it for a while. In the group, obviously, we're going to talk about it a little bit at length, but there will be an XRP video and, just kind of like basic targets and things like that. But, I went live in February, like the first week of February with the Investing Bros with TA Tim and T Shroom. Love those guys. And they asked me about XRP, and I said, at the time we were trading below this 54-cent level. And I was like, based on what I'm seeing out of Bitcoin, no weakness there. This isn't a bad chart. If you recover 54 cents, which obviously it's done ever since, go to the monthly chart, you can see what I mean by you did chop around it a little bit. But in the 3-month, the quarterly chart, which is all we care about in this one instance, things actually don't look that bad. And I would expect to see probably the Q4 high taken right here would be one of my first targets, around 75 cents. And then you start looking towards potentially the 2023 highs at 94 cents. And anything above that 2023 high here, you have some very good potential. And the reason I say that is you could then start comparing this to a Bitcoin chart that should look familiar to you if you've been in the space for a while. Something like this, right, would look somewhat familiar, where you have the high and low. If you're just trading this as a channel, let's put a little background on, a little background noise for you guys. Boom. Something like this. You can go down to like a daily chart and you can kind of see, a nice channel, right? Very nice accumulation channel before blast off. XRP, not saying it's doing the same thing, but this is something I brought up back in 2021 when we were looking for 29 cents. And I put that video is very public. It's still out there. It was 5 parts and they were all uploaded to TikTok. You have a very similar look to your chart right now in terms of what you're looking to do. And you can see that the EQ here lines up nicely with the key level we're looking at on the high time frames. You start clearing these highs and there's nothing between you and the high of the range, again, around $1.93. And then the question becomes, will this try to make a new all-time high? Obviously the 2017 high is in your way at 247, but after that, why wouldn't you? Are there any patterns potentially that could play out in that instance? There are, and I plan on covering those a little more in depth in like an actual video. But to put things in perspective, what we just talked about with Bitcoin, right? So nice little accumulation range. You have the higher low. Accumulation range, a little bit deeper of a low here, but obviously another higher low. Comes back to the top side before breaking out, and it's a multi-year range at that point. I don't think this one's going to run like the Bitcoin chart and do 20x's, 30x's, things like that. But a re-challenge of this region of the chart would be in play if we're living above 54 cents and you start seeing 75 cents gets taken out. And I don't mean wicked above an SFP'd, I mean claimed, and you're starting to put market structure in and build on top of that. You are starting to look at this as potentially a break back to the range highs. And then you have to ask yourself, is this chart really bearish? I've got a low, I've got a higher low, a higher low, more higher lows. And now we're back at the range highs. And this is actually starting to look more like an ascending triangle rather than, a symmetrical triangle, or a lot of people are calling it a descending triangle, right? I think that patterns can be very useful. I also think that they can be completely subjective and worthless. Not to be rude, but it's very true. And I've been looking at both of these potentials for this asset, both a Gartley and a Crab. I know XRP Hank in the chat is going to be very interested in that based on his name alone. But you'd be looking for something like this. This would imply no new all-time high, where you could even end up back at something like this, where you're basically at the all-time high. You just didn't quite make one, right? You got the 1.414 as confluence for the Gartley, or you could do a type 2 Gartley, I think, or is it type 3, where you have the 1618886 connection for that D leg. That would be really shitty to do to the investors and not give them an all-time high. But I have to favor that if that move took place and you were in this multi-year range, and that's only if it took place. Like, you've still got a lot of ground to make up here. You really need to be living above that 95 cent previous year high to even consider the move up into this region to have that happen. But if a multi-year range like this broke out, to me, if the whole market's making all-time highs, if this truly is not a dead project, you would be looking for probably something a little more expansive, and that would probably be like a crab pattern, which this looks really, really ridiculous, like how tall it is, but it's like $5. And that would be, to me, like the out-of-pocket targets for this asset. And that is insane targets to me, because the market cap of this thing would have to be huge. However, if that doesn't happen, guys, if XRP doesn't do any of those things and it just stays down here while the rest of the market continues to rip, holy shit, and you're holding this, like, get out. Just get out. Quit torturing yourself. The thing is, you're missing out on multiple bull runs. waiting on XRP is not the answer, in my opinion. Not financial advice. Do whatever you want, I guess. But at that point, it's like, oh man, how much punishment can you take? So I guess I said I wasn't going to cover XRP, but we kind of did. I did want to cover an altcoin, but it is something I do want to make a separate video on. Kind of pander to the XRP community a little bit, because every bull run, I do this to you guys. So XRP got me into the space. I bought at 3 cents and rode it all the way to the all-time high and didn't sell till it was back down in like the dollar range. So I did something that, what was it? 2020, I put out a video. It was XRP to 86 cents was my target. I think we hit pretty close to that. We got very, very close, if I recall. Yeah, it was 80 cents essentially. And then after that, I was looking for like $2, and I think we hit 196 at the top of this channel. And then I started looking for $1.35 to 39 here. And that's when I said that if you hit this area and it ends up being a bearish reaction, because it was the gold pocket and a few other things, I would be looking for 29 cents, which was just a naked point of control from down here in this whole consolidation. And you got 29 cents on the dollar. That was actually a really good trade for me. Traded it up to the quarterly levels, and now you're looking to see this thing continue. And it is on a a reversal trend. There is a pattern at play here that did lead to the reversal, just so you guys know. That's what aided in the 29 cent target and call. And it did stem off of, just like Bitcoin, the COVID lows, right? So you had a really nice symmetrical, like a perfectly symmetrical bat pattern that panned out like so, I believe. Yeah. About like so. And it was pretty nice. It's something that we called out well in advance. It's kind of an ugly ABC in the middle here, but it was something that was there. And the reason it was so nice was because it also called the lawsuit ending. Everybody's like, time-wise, when's the lawsuit going to end? I said, I really don't care. What I care about is this pivot right here in July. And that was the lawsuit ending, which was pretty great. So if you were looking at this in terms of targets now, again, kind of like the shark pattern we talked about earlier, you'd be looking for the 50% mark first, right? So 50% mark for me is pretty important. And then after that, I'm looking for the 886, 113%, and the 1618, right? So these would be my targets at that point if this were to continue. Because you got to remember, this is from 2020 all the way to 2022, midway through it. So 2 years and 3 months, so 27-month pattern. That's a big pattern to play out, and it could take time to fulfill all of its targets. Obviously, the first trade was really good. We've hit our 50% mark. This would imply sometime in 2024, potentially filling that out. But even that is giving you kind of similar vibes to what we might be looking for if we were playing this, from a fib standpoint, right? So again, we said if you clear the 95-cent range, or I guess in this case, we call it $1.12 if you want to be extra conservative, that 50%. We are now targeting the 177 up to as high as 219 area. These are the levels to be trading off of. And then you start stair-stepping it up from there. Like, okay, can we re-challenge the all-time high? We kind of talked about that, $3. And then after that, where do I go from there? You would just be adding fib extensions. That's all you would be doing. You're not doing anything crazy here. We're not looking for astronomical figures that are going to make people shake their heads and, phone their mom and say, baby, we did it. We're going to be rich. Magic put up crazy XRP targets. That's not the case, right? You can see that these 364, 468, all of those come in line with what the outlandish, in my opinion, targets of the crab, which is right here. Boom. Okay, so that's it. Ready to end that, because I know it's a different time for Max being over in Dubai. I don't know what time it is for you over there right now, but I imagine you're getting close to dinner time. So
yeah, 10 to 8, starving, mate.
He's like, shut the fuck up.
No, it's always good. Always
hey,
good.
did you get your short? Because it looks like you got something going on here. You came very close to this local 1-to-1 that
CFT was loaded.
Huh?
CFT was loaded.
Oh man, that stinks. Yeah. So, anyways, guys, that's it. Link to the Discord's in the bio. We've been live for a long time. We will be more active. Also, some short form content coming. If you're in the group, there is a schedule underneath Hub Updates that is for educational material. I had some editing issues with my horizontal or my pivots and regressions video, but I do have the old one that's up, so that's available until I get the editing done for the new version of it, which is hopefully just a short 15 minutes. And then we are doing volume profile tomorrow in terms of how we're going to be using that. That way you guys can get rocking and rolling on that. And yeah, awesome. Good turnout for the first one back for not being active for 6 months. If you guys like the video, like, subscribe, all that jazz, blah, 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 blah. And see you guys later.